Been thinking a lot. Well, this has been quite the pensive chapter of my life, but one that's had quite a lot of changes, unforeseen changes. I think largely driven by finishing this book. And they literally just started sandblasting the building next to me as I started recording. So between that and the cop overzealously blowing his whistle in the background, hopefully this doesn't get too terribly annoying. Imagine you can hear me okay. Funny thing is that after I finished this book, I had this sense of calm that I've described to a few friends as, I think, being that kind of thing where I've heard a lot of male friends talk about once they had their first kid, they like calmed down. Like they had a real drive, a real need to make things happen. Like I don't know if that was like it's an aggression, if it's a sexual thing, what all it is. But then once they had their first kid, they just kind of like chilled out. Like their genes have been passed on, they've done their job, that's kind of it. As somebody who doesn't really want to have kids, I kind of never expected that to happen to me in a way. I don't know if I've ever been that riled up. I guess I've been kind of riled up in my own way, but as soon as I finished the first draft of this book, I felt like I could just calm down. Like I felt like I'd done something, like I'd given something to the world as a result that effectively left me in the net positive. Like I'd actually left the world with a little bit more than I took. Maybe in a better place than I found it, although I'm not sure that's possible. It's definitely not on my shoulders, globally speaking, but it was in there. So I think there's the combination of like that calm settling in, but then there's also like this idea that like, I don't know if it's like the simulation is about to reset. There's something about finishing this book. It feels like the world is just careening towards craziness. And it's coinciding with me wrapping up not only this chapter of my life, but this book. I met up with a friend the other day who was going through a lot of stuff himself. He's kind of wrapping up a big chapter of his life, preparing to start the next chapter. And as he talked about like, oh, like I think I'm finishing an actual act in my life. He asked me, what is the structure, like in that story structure, where do you think you are with your life? And I don't know if I missed a beat, but after thinking about it for a second, like honestly, this feels like ending a whole book. Not just that the simulation is gonna reset, that's a little bit grandiose. I realize I'm gonna go to therapy after this, and maybe that's like delusions of grandeur. It's not that the simulation itself is actually gonna reset when I finish this book and put it out into the world, although it does kind of feel that way. It's more that I just can't see past this section of my life. I don't know if I've ever mentioned how much I hate this neighborhood, but I might be flirting with burnout just a little bit. I don't mean for this to be like super on the nose when I say that I feel like I'm finishing a book, because I realize I just finished a second memoir, but it does feel very real. I feel like there's this big portion of my life, the biggest portion time-wise of my life, which is just mindlessly moving forward, like trying to survive, doing the best that I could, putting everything together and trying to figure things out, but in a very like base needs kind of way. Just find a place where you're safe and you can eat food and you can sleep and not be anxious about where you lay your head at night. And that took me decades of my life to figure out, because unfortunately I was not born into security. I was not born into a helpful, loving family. I was born into an adversarial environment, and I didn't know that, of course, as a kid, but it left me just kind of like in survival mode. Well, it put me in survival mode from the beginning, and it's taken me the majority of 40 years to get out of that. And then the second book of my life, the one that I just wrote essentially, was stopping and waking up and paying attention to my bad behavior, my bad choices. That's something else I actually kind of want to talk about. My uncle made a comment the other day about how people don't change. And I don't know if I believe that. Well, we'll talk about that in another time, but the second book and the second portion of my life, which has been shorter, it's been faster lived. It's been a different kind of intense period of my life of just, going to therapy, obviously, addressing a lot of things that needed to be addressed that were at the root of my poor choices and my bad behavior. Seeing cycles, but seeing's not enough, right? Like seeing them and then working really hard to properly break them, which requires trying and failing and trying and failing. And there's a lot, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And it's not that I don't have more work to do. I have a lot more work to do. But there is something very, very poignant in this period of life that I found myself in. At the end of a massive, you could call it a chapter or a book, but the reality is that like I have had a drive that's calmed down. I have had a drive to like get to where I am right now, to just be safe, secure, to be able to do something with my life that is something I actually enjoy, that more than pays the bills, that supports the people around me. I'm really, really fortunate to be in a place where I'm like, oh my God, I might be able to breathe. And I'm learning to let myself do that, which is why the danger of flirting with burnout right now comes a lot from just like the go, go, go drive that I still do have. But as I close out this part of my life, as I wrap up this book, and I keep thinking like June is kind of the end goal, right? Like if I can get this book out, if we can do the launch party, if we can just celebrate, then after that I can crash for a minute, I can reevaluate, and from there I have no idea what life looks like. I don't really know what my drive is or where I'm trying to go. I have big plans and big projects, big dreams, that has never changed, but at the same time, like there is a calm to it that leaves me feeling like everything that I do from here is gravy. I don't feel like I've actually accomplished that much with my life in a lot of ways. I don't think I ever will, but I have accomplished all the major goals that I set out to. Not all the major goals that I set out to, but really the realistic ones. Like, yeah, sure, I haven't been able to direct any like $100 million films, and maybe I never will be able to. That industry might just go away, we don't know. But among the goals of like getting to France, making it stick, getting my citizenship, building a business that's actually fairly stable right now, knock on wood, given like global everything, that I have ejected so much of the toxicity from my life, the vast majority of it, that I've learned to set strong boundaries, that I'm keeping further toxicity out of my life, that I am bringing in such wonderful friends, teammates, people into my life in general, that I have this amazing audience that you're watching this right now. There's so much to be grateful for. I cannot see, none of us can see the future, but I think in a lot of ways I used to have an imagination for how my future could be bigger and better that propelled me. And now I can stop and I can think about those things and I can dream for that future. But honestly, it feels like all I'm worried about right now is closing this book, ending this chapter, bringing everything to like a nice finish, setting this book into the wilds, and seeing where we go from there. It really does feel like it's all gravy from here. Like if I can accomplish or add anything to my life from here, it will just be on top of what I've been able to do. I very much feel like I've spent my entire life crawling out of hell. I've finally made it out. I don't really have a lot to show for it on the outside, but I have so much to show for it on the inside. And to me, that matters so much. Anyway, I like I said, I gotta go to therapy here in a minute. So, whew. And then tomorrow we can talk about whether or not the service priming. Do you believe that people are capable of change or not? And what do we mean when we say that? We'll grab that tomorrow. Oh, but for now, I need to wander off and get myself some professional help. Thanks to today's patron producer, Caroline Braithwaite, and all my patrons for making this possible. See what therapy reveals.